And recording.
We ready, Chief?
Yeah, let me, we did have Raylene said that she was going to be unable
Right.
to attend.
Right.
I think Annabelle is going to try and get in a little bit late, as well as Linda Battaglia said she was going to be a little bit late. Kathy Briggs is unable to attend as well.
Okay.
It looks like we got a good group. So let me share our jam-packed agenda for the night.
Well, all right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank you, and what a tremendous journey we've started here with regard to the governor's edict and what has been done since the late fall of last year and now moving into the early part of this year. I think we've had both very good attendance, but a whole lot of input, as well as a lot of information provided by people in the community, as well as experts in certain fields, as well as our police departments, our city manager's office, the city attorney's office, excuse me, as well as the community participation and the one-off meetings like the stakeholders group back on January 4th and others like that. I think that's what's made this process both very unique, and I think hopefully something that we can start using this as, again, that foundation and the fulcrum to not only get this report to the state and the governor through the city council sometime in the next couple, probably less than 60 days, but also to use this as a part of a plan going forward for how this community continues to grow and thrive and interact and deal with each other on a conversational and dialogue basis. And so again, with that, again, we have the draft plan. I believe it was circulated by Sean or the city manager's office. I'm not sure which one. So Sean, if you want to put that up, and then let's get rolling here.
So it should be up there now for everyone to see.
It's there.
I'm going to start right at the summary section because the other is just the whereases and letters. So there was just a couple of submissions that were sent, at least to myself. I'm not sure if Rachel received anything this afternoon. I didn't receive anything additionally. Fran forwarded some comments, and then there was some clarifications on names, titles, and spellings. But other than that, I believe the only comments we received, at least to my email, were the comments from Fran Marchese.
Yep.
I don't know if Fran wants to expand on those, the comments.
They seem to focus on the idea of if we're going to do this and we're being asked to do this, funding should come with it in terms of both implementation, excuse me, and some kind of long-standing or more going out into the future process of making sure that things actually happen and that this is not just a hollow sentiment as far as even how the state and the governor himself reacts to all these plans that are going to start arriving on their doorsteps.
Yeah, I think Fran was speaking, but he's muted. I don't know if you can unmute yourself, Fran.
Fran, I think you're still muted.
You're still on mute, Fran. There you go.
Okay, there. All right, on page 7, it states in the third paragraph down, Batavia Stakeholders Group was created to foster trust, fairness, and then it says for just the colored and the minorities of the city, and I said it should be probably for all people, not just for the colored and the minorities. I mean, what we're doing here is not just for the colored or minorities, should be for everybody. These rules should follow true for all people, not just them. We shouldn't have a different set of rules. Okay, that's the one comment. And
Yeah,
then,
Fran, this is George Van Est. Certainly understand your comment, but the genesis of the executive order was really to address minority concerns and some of the significant issues which occurred last year. Essentially where that paragraph came from. The laws applied equally to the best of the ability of the police agencies, but in terms of what the executive order says it should focus on, that was one of the main points. By way of background.
it's just, it's just a comment. And the other comment basically went for a couple of the paragraphs. Where I said that if the upon the approval by the Governor Como that New York State should fund any additional funding that we need to have. And I feel that should be part of this because this is, I mean, he says, go ahead and do it, but we don't get the money. How can we do it? Or what
Right.
are we going to take the money from? So, it's
So
just,
in terms of process, it's not really approved by the state or the governor's office. It's required to be submitted to the Office of Management Budget with a checklist to show that each municipality did certain things and did the analysis, but there's not necessarily an approval process for that. On the funding piece, I'll defer to Jay or Rachel, but unfortunately it's New York State and there's a lot of great ideas and funding seems to come at the tail end or if at all for those.
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead, Jay.
Rachel. No, go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say, I don't certainly agree with you that it would be nice to ask for funding to implement some of these measures, of course, but I don't think it hurts to have the language, but I wouldn't use language upon the approval or that New York State should fund. It could be a standalone sentence that would be increased funding to law enforcement from New York State. Certainly, I don't know, would be helpful in this endeavor, or something like that. Fran, I think might be work out in there. And Jay, what do you think?
Well, I think you're onto that, Rachel. I think the other thing is that in general, and it seems like that sometime in the next 30 to 60 days, as this whole process and all these plans are going to Albany, that there will be some kind of a stimulus bill that will address some part of the funding of state and local governments across the country. New York State is certainly one of the 50 states last time I checked. And from the perspective of what that funding will do for them, would hopefully also give them some impetus to use some of what they receive, not just what we get at the local level, to focus on this kind of an initiative that they've got all of us doing, and recognizing that this is an area that's been inadequately funded, just like mental health training has been for years and years and years and years. And it's really just become a local resource, except for some very specific grants, like Stop DWI or some of the safety grants, things of that nature, which basically the only thing they tell the police departments and sheriff's departments is spend your money on overtime, but don't let it displace any of your existing operations or help fund part of your existing operations. Make it, sort of targeted enforcement and things of that nature. So I think all of us have the opportunity when the stimulus bill gets enacted, again, the big one, the one, the $180 billion that they're talking about at the federal level that will, seemingly come to all of us, at the state and local level, is that this is an area where we can say, and here's part of what you and we need to agree on as far as funding going forward is concerned. That's just another way to frame the same kind of thing.
well, I think, it wouldn't hurt to put it in. I don't think, it's just an idea.
Gotcha.
And it's a backwards way of asking for the money. Because it's saying if he approves what he wants us to do, then he's also going to provide the money.
Understood. Okay. So Sean, back to you.
Yeah, so that was the comments that we had received. I don't know if we want to open it up to the group to see if there's any further comments as we develop this and I guess finalize this tonight. We do have our consultant Earl on the line taking notes and making real-time changes as we go. So I don't know if you kind of want to go around your screen, Jay, and just see if anybody.
No, yeah, well, I think that's a good idea, Sean, is, have everybody, be given the opportunity, just speak up, understand that, we don't have, raising hands doesn't necessarily always work. So, just feel free to step in. If you hear somebody else already talking, just wait and then, pick up right after that. So go ahead. The floor is open, sports fans.
I liked it. I liked everything about it. I understand Fran's comments, but I also understand what George made clear on it. So I think we just progress on it.
Other people.
Oh yeah, I just chime in. I liked it
Sure,
also.
go ahead, Victor.
I liked it also. Read through it a few times. I love everything that was included in the action part and the conclusion part. I think we move forward also.
Okay. Keep going, folks.
I read through it. I thought it was comprehensive. I liked the information that was included. I know what you're speaking of, Fran. I've worked for a not-for-profit my whole life, and it seems like, everybody wants you to do more with less. And so if there is an opportunity to ask for funding, I would say, what harm does it do? Ask for the funding. And at least it says, there's a need. But other than that, I thought everything I read was very good. I submitted just a quick change to that I work for the YWCA, not the YM. But
Millie, didn't we tell you that you are now are running both?
so
You
it's
and
just,
Jeff Townsend and Rob pick alternate days to be the leader.
there you go. I said, just flip that M upside down. And then you got it.
Hey, Jay, this is
Yes,
Earl.
sir. Hey, Earl.
I'll just point out to folks, when you look at the action steps that the group is advocating for, we do make a subtle note about, look, we want to do a lot of these things,
Yeah.
but we're hamstrung financially. We do not have the resources.
Yes, good point.
It's one thing to come out with a 2x4 and hit the governor and the state over the head. It's another to kind of imply, these are all great ideas and things we want to do as a community, but we just don't have the money. We've got to start.
And I think the framing of that is that we are doing this. We anticipate continuing to do this as a focal point of our public safety ethos in the community and our interaction with people. But to the extent that they see action steps in here that they want to champion, and typically as the governor makes announcements on things, he'll pick something out of a plan that somebody sent him like this and say, and over there in Batavia, they're doing this. Yes, Governor, but you and we both know that none of this stuff usually is free when it comes to how you do it and how much more resource you put together. And it's not about defunding police or any of that kind of stuff. It's a matter of right sizing both the programs, but also the money. And the state has a really big piece of that, plain and simple.
I'll just add on to that some of the things don't cost money in terms of relationship building.
Right.
And those points we can and have started to implement immediately. So that is the good part. However, some of the other special details and community policing will require added resources. And as I've said before, this budget year is extremely difficult with lots
just
of
read yesterday or today's headline in the Daily News as far as what you're starting to put together with the department heads, Rachel. I mean, it's got the word constraint written all over it. And at the same time, there's this kind of a fantastic plan that's being put together and is, is going to start moving forward, but also, being expanded on and utilized more and more in the community. But in some cases, it's a matter of, well, if only the funding. And if we keep saying that, then even the plan starts to sound hollow, as far as, but again, knowing that you can't put this burden strictly on the taxpayers of the city of Batavia.
Right, and I wouldn't want that to foreshadow the good work that we're doing here, nor the ability to keep these outcomes listed in the plan, so.
Right. Well, even the plan going forward, potentially changing and more, meat on the bone, so to speak, but even new initiatives that haven't been, put forward yet, because, wow, we did that. What if we took it and did this with that? Or, we saw this out of another plan from somewhere else in the state and thought, why couldn't that work here? Those kind of things. And as they said, the Tanstable principle, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It really comes down to it when you're talking, a municipal department of government like this, that's, already burdened with a whole lot of duties and responsibilities. But this is just as critical as to how we move forward.
I feel naive even asking this, but is the police department restricted or in just asking for New York State funding, or can they apply for private grants?
We can apply for, any grant that's available for our specific needs. So yeah, there's certainly other grants that we can look towards.
I think Jeff Bezos' divorced wife might be a good resource there, Sean. She gave out $20 million to our Rochester United Way.
Great. Give me
The
your
other
number.
place that might be a really good place to look is the Ralph Wilson Foundation. They are very, very generous to our community. It isn't just Buffalo anymore. It's,
Right.
They've helped the Y, they've helped, Monroe County. So they're a great resource. And I'm glad to hear it's not just, limited to just asking New York State, because New York State doesn't have any money anymore. So, I don't know if the county has a grant writer that could possibly look for grants that would be appropriate to this, that could help with some funding, but that would just be something I would suggest.
Most grant writings go to other nonprofits, and the other nonprofits are limited to what they can give in their charter. Okay,
Right. So you have to make a
so
cogent tie.
you may not have public, that kind of money available to the police department or to a city, because of the grants are all coming from nonprofits.
Right,
And
and
their
maybe
their charters limit them as to who they can give money to.
I agree, Fran. I'm just throwing it out there. It might be, worth just looking at the different opportunities that might be out there for grants.
I mean,
There might be a specific
being
tie-in
an
that you can make.
auditor of a schools districts.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the amount of money that the governor has told the school districts that they've got to spend on doing something, but he gives them no money. And so our school taxes keep going up because we're mandated to do a lot of stuff. But there's no funding.
I know all about that, Fran, working for a not-for-profit my whole life. I know all about trying to build a program with no money. And, I agree with Rachel. It's about relationship building. It's about building partnerships, and the rest just kind of works its way out. And I think this is such a worthwhile project that I would hate to see it stop because we can't find the money.
Can I just interject something in here, kind of?
Go ahead, Marty.
Off of what Rachel said a little bit to it. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we always need, we're never going to have enough money. If the state or whoever said, we're going to give the city 5 million, you'd have a place for that before lunch tomorrow. So there's never going to be enough money. But what we have accomplished is that, Jay, you've been around long enough.
Don't
I
remind
don't
me, Marty.
know, I didn't mean that in a bad way, but I'm not sure that 10 years ago, this meeting would have ever happened with the people that we have on it. I am just so grateful for, Victor being in this group. I can't see everybody now. I think I saw Greg.
Yep.
You asked those guys, Victor, what would you have thought 5 years ago if you were to be invited to this? I'm on the CJAC committee too, and they approved Greg Monroe to be a part of the CJAC. To me, this is the essence of what this whole thing is about. That to a degree, our community has been, I'm not certain that it's been deliberate, but it's just been, there's been no attention to it. And we have put attention to it now. And I think we've moved in an incredibly positive way. I'll let Victor comment to that if he so chooses, but I'm just grateful for the movement that we've made. And
Yeah, I'll say 10 years ago, no, I don't think this conversation would have happened. But from the beginning, like I said, I want to applaud. I applaud the chief because from the beginning, the march, before any of this came down, he was there. He was willing to hear concerns. He was there the day of the march, and he was willing to hear his community's cry. And I think that showed even more, like you're saying, like this conversation needed to happen, even without the governor. Yeah, the governor passed it down, but we took that and we created another focus group that looked deeper in once we didn't get results that we wanted from a survey. So it shows what's manifesting. It shows the growth in Batavia. And I'm just happy to be a part of it. I'm happy to have my thoughts and Greg's thoughts and other minorities' thoughts actually taken into consideration and actually put down in this plan. Like when Fran was saying in the beginning, like, yeah, it should stand for everybody, but I'm glad that the focus remained where the focus needed to be. And I'm happy to be a part of that. And I'm happy to continue the focus group, even after this goes to Albany,
Yeah, that's the key, Victor. We got to continue this.
that is the key. That is the key. This just isn't something that we do because the governor told us to. This is something that we do because it's right. It's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Other comments, people? Other suggestions?
If we get
go ahead,
money,
Marty.
if we get money, that's a bonus. If we don't, we keep on doing what we've done right here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Other comments, folks? Other suggestions?
Just a little bit to that point, Millie and I had hello?
Go ahead. You're good.
Millie and I had a conversation via email today, a little bit about how this group formed. And I think it's kind of to the point Victor just made. I mean, originally this was, here's the people that have to be in this room, go do it. And to folks on this call's, charge, that wasn't good enough, right? And it was, hey, we got to do better than just what the governor asked us to do. So let's go out and get some more people involved in this conversation. And I don't know if there's a place for that in here, particularly where we're talking about who the stakeholders are. But I think that's a key thing to take away from this as well.
Good point, Eric. Other comments, people, please.
So one of the areas I thought this is Nate, where we could talk a little bit about funding shortages on page 20. We have under the other section, we have the budgetary there in parentheses.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's an opportunity to just expand a very small amount and say, if funding allows, whether it's from the state or the feds or someone else, both in the Citizens Academy and the DARE officer. I'm not sure how DARE is funded right now, honestly, but if we could just expand budgetary a little bit there, that might allow us to make the point in another place.
Yeah, so just to clarify how it's funded, so our Citizen Academy program doesn't exist currently. It would be very similar to our Explorer Post Academy or our Explorer Post program. It is funded through the general fund, and it pays for the time of the officers that are involved and any small supply items that may take place. Again, due to cuts that Explorer Post program hasn't run this year at all. I'm sorry, 2020 at all. So we're hoping to get that back up and running, but a Citizens Academy would be very similar. So we'd have to pay for some materials and supplies, as well as the time dedicated to the officers for putting on the sessions. The DARE officer program, that's a little bit different. That's a tuition. So we have to send officers to DARE officer training school. It's a 2-week long course. It's put on at the Fire Academy down in Montour Falls. We've been lucky enough to be able to send 3 officers through the program. One of them is no longer with us. One of them has been promoted. And the other one is our current SRO. So in order to keep that program fresh and that program going, it is a significant cost for the tuition for that program. And obviously you're not paying board, room and rent or board down at the Fire Academy. They do give that to us for free, which is fantastic. But the program itself is pretty costly. And then of course you're obviously backfilling for any time missed by the officer that is attending that school. So those are how those are covered. Those are kind of some of the costs associated with that, Nate. And again, it comes from the general fund of our department.
I can add some language though, a sentence or
Yeah,
Um,
something on the idea,
yeah.
like the idea of
Yeah.
alternative but sustainable funding sources as has the schools and the local governments have funded the SRO programs. Because basically that's a shared expense between school districts and police agencies to some extent, or in some cases, the school districts take on the whole expense. And again, it actually provides an additional, uniformed officer, not just, one who's sort of kind of splitting their time type of thing. It's that kind of thing that certainly the state keeps talking about shared services. There's a lot of things in this that fit right into that rubric.
Just to piggyback the idea of shared services, this is Cassandra, by the way.
Hey, Cassandra.
Is there any way to incorporate more of the mental health aspect, not just with training, but say maybe even aiding with calls, the after-hours services that are going to be available to officers? I know there was kind of a toss around of maybe having some sort of collaboration for the day calls that would be mental health crisis. And our involvement overall in that. I mean, if we're talking about resource sharing, that would be a huge component to that. We're talking county to county providers.
Yeah, I think that'd be a fantastic addition to this plan, is to, continue and build on collaboration with our mental health partners, not just for training, but for, mental health services and emergency crisis type calls.
Yeah, Sean, is it safe to say that this is one area, mental health services in general, that almost all communities keep finding themselves coming up short with regard to what they're being asked the police departments and the first responding agencies to do, and then hope that they can triage long enough for a mental health part of the program to either get their involvement directly, show up, or be able to do a handoff to a mental health operation of some kind.
And we do have that available too. We do have 2 therapists that are primarily available for crisis. Myself and several other therapists are primarily in the office for forensic based services. So that is something that we do offer. I think that we just need to collaborate more as far as what services should be added.
Okay, good point, Cassandra. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with that 100%.
Cool.
But you're right. It is something that all communities are struggling with, is this kind of how should law enforcement handle mental health calls moving forward? And, the more collaboration, the better.
Okay. Other comments, people? Other suggestions?
I don't know if this might be the right place to say this, but Julie, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name, C, that's on this committee, and I don't think she's on tonight. Julie and I have had discussions, and we're working together to put together at least an implicit bias training, but also possibly a year-long series of trainings, including white fragility, trauma-informed care, and many other topics that she is trained and certified to do. So when you talk about funding issues, not-for-profits, I hate to toot our horn, but we always do it for the least amount of cost, and we get the information out there. But it is something that I've thought, like, well, the first and foremost thing is, how do I pay Julie? And we were looking at it for not only this community, but for this this group, but for the community. So, again, I think we can do it. I've always had that, if there's a will, there's a way. If people want this to go forward, it will. And I don't think that the money issue should be the first and foremost thought. I will let everybody know when Julie and I come up with a schedule of trainings and what we propose to do and
So
how
if-
we're going to fund it.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. And I think Millie, to the extent that you guys put together some kind of, fiscal pro forma, helps with the rest of us to look at and say, okay, what is it that is totally not going to be able to, with kind of resources or, some of the other, shall we say, creative budgeting that people like Rachel, myself, and Matt Landers do, legal but creative. What is it that is still going to be a gap, and then where else do you go to help fill in the blanks? Kind of the
And is
the
it
last
something
mile
that
kind of funding.
And is it something that all our organizations could go in on? So, just say that, Julie and I come up with a plan for either, 1, 2, or a whole year long full of trainings. Is it something that, we can put out there and say, maybe the police department, the Y, all the different organizations that are here involved in this, as well as individual donations, would help to fund it, so that it's not all on one organization or one agency's back.
And Millie, you and I spoke, it must have been a month ago, but the ability to have the community outreach, community trainings, continued community conversations, I mean, I feel like that would be important to add it to this plan, because I don't know if you may have done this anyways, but since you're part of our group, I mean, should we be adding that into the plan that a community agency, the YWCA, is looking towards doing these types of community conversations or community training?
I would welcome that. That's been an ongoing goal.
Okay.
And Millie, this is Christy Waldron from Restore Sexual Assault
Hi,
Services.
Christy.
Hello. We're happy to help with that too. We've got staff that are also trained in trauma-informed care, trauma-informed response as well. So, we're happy to help with that, and we don't charge anything. So if that helps the burden at all, all of our trainings and services are free, so you won't have to pay our staff extra to do anything like that. We're happy to help. So
Wonderful. I mean, I think it's just kind of this group, talking about and then individually, what do we want to look at, and then how much it's going to be. And again, like Fran said in the beginning, where's the money going to come from? But some of these things, like, Christy, our not-for-profits do a really good job of getting the word out without putting a whole big price tag to it.
Yep.
Would it be also safe though for, for say the foreseeable future, maybe 3 to 6 months, that a lot of this would be done virtually anyway, and through either WebEx or Zoom, so that, that would give also people the idea that it isn't waiting on the opportunity for people to be physically, in each other's company, but just because it's a need that's out there, use the technology to get people understanding that it's now become part of the fabric of the community.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the route we were looking at, is not to wait till COVID's over and we can
Yeah.
all get together at GCC in the big room, you know. But how are we going to do it virtually before then? Because I don't think this can wait.
Gotcha. Other comments, questions, folks, please.
Real quick, if I can jump in, it's
Hey,
Lydia.
Lydia.
Hi. So with this, I'm hearing like from Restore, I'm hearing from the YWCA, and I know there's a bunch of new officers. Would it be prudent to kind of start having them as part of their training come to these organizations and like listen to the staff talk about what we do, what we offer? As they're the first responders, I think it's kind of important that they know what services the community has. And I know like certain officers know, but I don't know if all the officers know.
Yeah, it's certainly a fantastic idea. One of the just a bare reality of this is we do throw a lot of training at a police officer in their first year, right, that they're here. So to try to have them soak all that in and then, you know, get up to speed on just, you know, the day-to-day stuff is a little difficult. I was just going to make a comment before that we just have to be kind of mindful that there is a lot of training that an officer undergoes. I kind of laid that out, you know, early on during our meetings. Not that we're opposed to doing more. It is just something we have to be cognizant of. You know, we certainly don't want an officer that's in training all the time and not out on the road, you know, doing their primary function as well. It's not that we can't do it. We just have to be cognizant of how we deliver that, when we deliver that, what the expectation is, of the timeliness of getting that. And certainly introducing new officers to, you know, every service that's on this call, as well as all the ones that are not representative is very important. And I do think a lot of that does take place during their field training. But again, we just have to kind of be mindful of that time commitment, because it may not be a money commitment, but it's a time commitment for every single officer that is going to be is going to go through the training. And you know, and going through accreditation, there is you know, I forget the exact number of hours, but I believe there's several 100 hours of mandatory training that an officer has to take in every department in order to stay accredited too. So you know, these things add up, and then you talk about some other special details and stuff like that. So just be mindful of that. Nothing we're opposed to doing. Training is always good, but we don't want to overtrain too.
Very true. Very true. I know that as part of it, like when they go out on a call, the resources that we offer, it kind of takes the responsibility off the officer if they know that there's resources out there that will help them with it, where they don't have to, like a domestic violence situation. When we have people that are already trained in that, why not get them in earlier, if that makes sense? And if an officer doesn't know that that's available to them 24/7, how would they're going to not waste their time, but spend more of their time trying to fix the situation when someone could handle it. That's just my thought.
Yep, nope, you're absolutely right. Those are things that we have to update on a regular basis, and we have to make sure that that information gets out and distributed to the troops, so to speak, regularly, because it is constantly changing what those services are that are provided. And you know, especially now with the mobile crisis teams and stuff like that. And you know, just listen to what Cassandra said about, you know, the ability to have the individuals come to the scenes or the forensic issues. So that's important, and it is things that are constantly changing.
Okay. Other people's input, please.
No, the one comment that I said before is that the police department hires somebody that graduates in mental health, and they become also a police officer, because you can have a lot of training, but somebody does that for, you know, will have more experience and would be able to work better and be able to talk people out of the problems, instead of having a police officer who's only got limited training try to talk somebody out of doing something. Just my
You
comment.
know, Fran, I definitely hear you with that. And I just wanted to kind of piggyback off of that because I did hear you before when you had mentioned that. And it's an excellent idea. The big issue I think that even Chief can probably attest to is the amount of schooling that goes into becoming a therapist, a mental health therapist,
Yeah.
might outshadow the idea of becoming an officer on that. So what we can try to do, which is what I was just kind of throwing out there, because we have these services available daily, if we could have a therapist maybe attend a crisis call, and then we can have ongoing treatment with this person with our facility at mental health. Instead of that one interaction with them in crisis, now we can meet them in crisis, meet them where they're at, link them with the prescriber, link them with us, you know, and continue that instead of the one and done visits that you might get from a crisis officer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And Cassandra, isn't it true that most of the at a certain level, all of the professionals in the mental health are all licensed practitioners, not just, you know, they got some schooling kind of stuff. Isn't there a sort of a line that gets drawn there also? In
Correct.
terms of, yeah.
We have licenses, we have hours to maintain, accreditations. It's not just a bachelor's. There's nothing wrong with a bachelor's in social work. But of course, to get more in depth with mental health and crisis training, you would be looking at licensing, insurance, a lot of things that we can facilitate right directly at Genesee County Mental Health.
Gotcha. Okay. Other comments, suggestions, people?
Guess I just want to clarify, Chief,
Go ahead.
if you could, on officers on the ground, because I don't know the answer to this. You know, their awareness of the mental health resources and the ability to call those resources out to a scene or have a phone call at that time. Can you just describe to the group how that works now and if there's room to enhance or grow that?
Yeah, so the way that takes place is, you know, the officers receive a 911 call, or dispatch receives a 911 call. They'll send the officers to whatever that scene is. If the individual, it does not rise to a level of a 941 arrest or a custodial arrest to take them to a psychiatric hospital, the officers usually try to connect that person with the Spectrum Cares line, which that's my understanding is what it is now. So, you know, it is widely used. Every officer is aware of it. Sometimes the scene or the individual just doesn't even rise to the level of making that phone call as well. So it is a judgment call upon the officer or the supervisor that's working, whether that connection is made. But we try to, you know, we do our best to try to connect that person with the services. And, you know, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that number is posted on our board downstairs, as well as every officer has the cards in the vehicles, correct?
At one
Yeah,
of the,
in worst case scenario, they can go through dispatch to get all that information. And that's just the after hours stuff. Obviously, Monday through Friday, we have a good relationship with mental health. We've had multiple instances where we've helped, you know, even if it's just assist somebody to get to mental health. So we're definitely aware of the resources, but as Chief said, and everybody else is saying here, I mean, the more help we can get, the more training we can get, and the more resources we can get, I think it's just going to be better for everybody.
at one of the earlier meetings, when we were talking about the mental health, and somebody said, well, maybe the police officer will go get somebody from mental health and drive with them, because if somebody gives them a call and said the guy has got a mental problem, and they says, wait a minute, we don't want to go there and get shot because we don't want to be the first ones on the scene. I understand that. That's, you know, so you can train your police officers for so much. It's actually a no-win situation.
It's a difficult one. I wouldn't say it's a no-win.
Right.
We do the best we can to make sure that every outcome is good. You know, unfortunately, not every outcome is good, but we have a very, very good track record here in the city of making sure that the officers respond in a timely fashion and act appropriately, and connect that individual with the resources that they need. If it's an immediate arrest and taken into custody, that's what happens. If it's something that we can do a warm transfer, if you will, to Spectrum Cares or our mental health partners during the regular business hours, we will do so.
And Sean and Chris, that also involves, in some cases, sort of doing a connection with a family member who facilitates that next step by the person who initially law enforcement and the mental health person came in direct contact with.
Correct. We will uncover every rock in
Right.
order to make it, in order to make everything work. So
Gotcha.
certainly
Okay.
want a good
Thank-
outcome for everyone.
Thank you for explaining that. Just one follow-up question, and then I had another thought to throw out there that Jay just reminded me of. Have we ever surveyed officers to find out what resources they're missing or they don't know about in terms of, you know, when they're doing their jobs, what could they use more help with to find out where maybe they lack some skills or knowledge? I just throwing it out there.
That's a very good question. I will say our new performance evaluation process does allow the officer a feedback session, which kind of touches on that, I guess. You know, it's about their personal development and what they want to do for their career. But it does touch on what other resources and training they think they should have in order to do their job better. But it is a continual conversation we have at the supervisor level as to what is needed. You know, how can we better provide services? So I wouldn't say that we necessarily survey the officers formally, but it does take place.
Yeah, and I'm not thinking about a pop quiz or anything, but
You know, we just got done with a survey. Might as well do another one.
What else, Rach?
the second thing you just reminded me about the continuum of care and families helping families in situations of mental health. I thought we touched upon it before about groups in neighborhoods that might help with situations that are continually, and I don't know if we fully formed this idea, so forgive me, groups and neighborhood representatives that might be there when, you know, officers are continually called to situations involving certain individuals over and over again that we just can't seem to get resolved. And I'll throw it out there for discussion because I don't have much more to add than that, but I remember it being a conversation. I don't know if we ever finalized thoughts around that.
Chris or Matt or Sean?
I could say that is definitely a glaring need. I will say that, you know, I think we had this past summer, we had Just King come down to help us with a specific issue between two individuals. And I think that went extremely well. So having groups or neighbors to rely on like that is extremely important, but it is an area where we need to improve. Specifically, you know, in some of our tougher neighborhoods. And I'm not sure if Victor, if you came down for that. I don't want to call it an intervention, but it was a little bit of a conversation I think some of your guys had with some of the neighbors up on State.
Yeah, and that was just us being in contact with, you know, the community that we live in, you know, and it was just bridging those two gaps between two families that were predominant families here in Batavia, and it was a small altercation, small problem that we got to the bottom of pretty quickly with the help of the police. So, and them allowing us to come down there and help them. So,
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
we need more of that. We need more of that.
Other comments, folks?
I have two very minor suggestions. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you to the chief, assistant chief, Rachel, and anybody else who worked on this. I think it stays at a nice level where it's not overly detailed, but still gives enough that you get a good idea what's going on. So good job from me. Page 20 and 21, I thought it would be a little more powerful if we put the section on transparency next to the section on implementation of Crime Watch technology. I thought those two paired really well, and both give great information to the community and talk about it together. Just shifting around a little bit.
Just to position them closer together, Nate, is that what you're basically saying?
Yep. And then last time on page 14, we talked about the survey response. 10.8% of the survey responses rated their interaction as unprofessional and or very unprofessional. Chief, you were able to elaborate a little bit on that 10.8%, which I thought was really helpful information. And I think it was that none of those responses were people who had been arrested. So it ended up being a little bit more of a minor, less volatile interaction. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I thought that sentence or two explanation from you was really helpful and maybe elaborate a little bit on that point.
Yeah, we can certainly add that data in there. Yeah, again, it was the individuals I was able to drill down in the survey to see, you know, the individuals that answered the question if they had been arrested by the department, what their overall interaction rating was, and none of them were unprofessional. So yeah, we can certainly add that into the into that section there. I think that makes good sense.
Okay, and then just one last question. On page 19 at the bottom, it says that the police department's going to implement an officer wellness program. And I don't know if we had sort of talked about that in generalities. Yeah, right there at the bottom, page 19. And maybe I missed it, but I was just hoping for a little more detail what an officer wellness program entails. And if it's new, then we should say it's new.
Yes. So it is something that I've actually been working on for about a year now, is trying to stand up an officer wellness program. And really what it is about having not only physical wellness, but mental and social wellness aspects. So from the standpoint where our officers deal with a lot of different cases, and some of them can just wear on you. For example, you know, homicide cases, or, you know, dealing with cases where children are involved, that type of stuff. So our priority is to try to make sure that the officer has some type of counseling services available in real time to them, whether it's through our own pastor service or through professional counseling. So we do have some pieces of it in place. I can definitely add some more depth to that and what it does entail, but it is a priority of mine, has been for about a year now, and try to just make sure that we're wrapping our officers with good services that will help them maintain, you know, stability in the job, and not succumb to any of those issues that are negative, as well as support families, obviously, because I talked about it early on. Our officers out there, their families are their support systems. So we have to make sure that we're supporting the families as well.
That all sounds great. I would love to, you know, it doesn't have to be that detailed, but just touch on some of those points. I think that would, it would show the depth of what you're doing as administration and as a department. So I think that'd be great. Thank you.
I can add some more meat to that.
Good point, Nate. Other comments, folks? Other considerations or questions, please? Okay.
Can I do have a couple of questions or considerations, if I may.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry. Sticking with page 19 on the training, and Chief, I understand exactly what you mean as far as too much training, well, that they only have so much time. But the point in the third paragraph about an instructor for de-escalation and defensive tactics, and depending on money available for that, could you possibly have it say in the alternative, I mean, that it's not absolutely necessary to have an instructor? An instructor would be nice, but to at least try to fit some training in regards to de-escalation and defensive tactics, even without having an instructor or certified instructor? I mean, there'll be guidelines coming out, I think, soon on some of that, and whether or not you have an instructor or not, would you still be able to somehow implement that into day-to-day practice?
Yeah, I think we can definitely add some language in there where if, we get to a point where we don't have the ability to have an instructor, that we continue those programs. Absolutely.
And just on that point also, and I know that you're on the CJAC committee, and some of us on the stakeholders are also. But GCC had, and I think we talked about this at one of these meetings. GCC has the, I don't know what they call it, this new technology that they just came on board with, virtual training and simulation, things like that. And I think that eventually, whether it's during the pandemic or after the pandemic, that we might be able to, or the city might be able to use those resources locally for some training. And I know it might require programming, but I think the county sheriff's department might also be doing something to use the GCC training and the money that they got to build such a great setup over there for real life simulated trainings for defensive tactics, implicit bias, de-escalation, all that stuff, by using something that GCC has got a lot of money to provide to the community for a resource. And I think it's just there for the taking, that we should be able to somehow use that.
We are planning on partnering with
Go
them.
ahead, Chris.
Chris has got some comments on that.
Nope, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, so actually one of our sergeants, our firearms instructors, has been in contact with GCC to set up to use some of the equipment already. So yeah, definitely something that we're going to reach out to and utilize and use. Yeah, unfortunately, the pandemic has kind of slowed things down on that front. But yeah, I agree 100%. Right in our backyard, we're going to have access to a lot of good resources, and we fully intend to take advantage of that.
And just to follow up on that, talking about resources, and I know trying to get money, unless people are willing to do this for free, the trainings like the implicit trainings and all the other trainings. I know me as a defense organization and the Public Defender's Office, we were inundated with trainings for free from various state and local and federal agents, nonprofits, providing training, especially now that they're virtual. So I think there's a lot of groups out there that would love to be able to provide trainings through virtual training, through Zoom or whatever platform to law enforcement. So I think it's just a matter of reaching out, finding some good, credible, professional agencies, nonprofits that are willing to do that. And I know they're out there because we've gone through a lot of them in my office. And as far as grants, I also know that there, especially with the changing administration, that I expect that there's going to be a lot of national nonprofits or philanthropies or federal government money for training, whether it's for implicit bias or anything having to do with Black Lives Matter. I think that you're probably going to see grant money available. And this question is just having the ability to go out there and search for it. And I know the county, I'm not sure if they still have a grant officer,
Yes,
but
they do.
yeah, that one of their jobs is to
Contract
find
service,
this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jerry,
So I don't know if you could share that.
On your former comment, Jerry, did you see any sort of menu of the kind of trainings and/or I'm not sure what the right term is, seminars that came with who these entities were that were out there, plying the trade of the netherworld of being in the public defender's milieu?
Well, I mean, they were all trainings. I mean, the ones in the last 4 or 5 months were all implicit bias trainings.
Okay.
They're run by the New York State Bar Association, the National Bar Association. There are lots of nonprofits were running them. Public defender agencies, legal aid agencies, NYCLU. I mean, they were all putting them out there. They're all, I'm sure, they all are available and would be willing to do any kind of these trainings, especially as you said, Jay, now that they're virtual. It it's almost doesn't cost them anything and they think
Yeah.
it's for a good cause.
Yeah, as long as they have a big enough Zoom profile in terms of number of participants, it's, you know, or you said it, Lily, I mean, we did it where I am working right now temporarily. We went from 25, went to 100 plus, and all of a sudden the number of people that we were just basically bringing into these various Zoom meetings just both went exponentially, grew exponentially, but people also didn't feel like they had to disappear within 45 minutes or anything like that.
Right. And these are agencies that they're looking to do this. They want to reach out to people and, you know, no
Right.
matter what the size, and especially police agencies. And some of them are very good at getting people to talk, and it's not easy, but they do work, and it's just a matter of finding them.
Gotcha.
I just want to point out too that many of our therapists are specialized in certain fields. So those trainings
Yeah.
could be something that's facilitated by mental health and therapists themselves as well. If you wanted to shoot out an email and see who would be interested in training for what.
Good.
I agree with you. I agree with your points, Jerry. There is a lot of available Zoom training out there. There's a lot of available training out there. You know, that's not the biggest hurdle. The biggest hurdle is paying the guys to attend the training, because it is, you know, we're not gonna be able to do it on their regular shift for the most part. Although we try to do that as much as possible whenever we can get creative there. But you're absolutely right. They are available. We have taken advantage of them over this past year. So it's been good. But
And if I could just add on that point, and I don't know what may be out there, especially, you know, come after January 20th, but this grant money might provide for money for paying employees to take the training.
yeah, it'd be welcome. That would be welcome.
Yeah, and you're right, Jerry. I think because you know, the perspective is this is not just a Western New York, Finger Lakes, New York issue that we're dealing with. This is national and has become even more national, you know. And so it's not like, well, somebody would necessarily feel like, well, we're missing some part of the country. No, this has become a nationwide issue and focal point with regard to, you know, police interaction, community interaction, you know, things of that nature. And I think that's part of what hopefully this new administration also not only espouses, but actually takes it to heart with regard to their movement and their funding, you know, as far as going forward, particularly for these small agencies like what we're dealing with here, you know, in Batavia and even in Genesee County to that extent.
Absolutely.
Other questions or comments, people?
Chief, is it ever possible for an officer to do a virtual training in a vehicle? Like during downtime?
Yes, it's possible for them to connect
not
to
from a liability standpoint.
yeah, it's possible for them to connect to it, but you know, the unfortunately, it's just the unpredictability of what our work is. We don't want them distracted in the vehicle.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, they can take it from their phone.
Other questions or comments, please? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're ready to hand this back off as far as putting the final wraps to this, as far as the city people are concerned. Again, we're always looking for more input and also what's going to come out on the other side once this has been filed and taken to the city council. But Rachel, again, remind us of the schedule as far as taking it to the city council, work conference session first, then a public meeting and a hearing.
Yeah, so let me start with the city council meeting that they are still closed to the public at this time, but broadcasted
As far as
live.
physical attendance, but we
Physical
can all
attendance.
Zoom in, right?
Yep, you can stream in.
That's right.
And anyone that has comments on agenda items can certainly write the clerk in advance. So the chief and I and the city attorney will be presenting the plan with all of your comments into a presentation to city council on the 25th. At that point, the plan will be posted on the city's website, on the police department's page, and there will be opportunity for citizen comments throughout the community for roughly a month at that point. And then it will go for final adoption on March 8th at the city business meeting.
Okay.
And the chief and I were going to summarize the comments we'd received during that month-long period. So again, this is the handoff point of this plan moving towards the approval process of city council.
Yeah. Can we reinforce that with our friends in the media, the Daily, the radio station, Howard, that kind of thing also? You know, just let them keep churning as far as making sure that when that, particularly when the 30-day comment period opens up, that, you know, this is what city council is really looking for in terms of feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the feedback that's germane to the plan will then be shared.
Yeah,
Feedback
no,
that's
understood.
not germane, right, would be what people were offered to give us in the survey. So we'll consider that more, you know, all feedback's good feedback, right? Even if it's
Right.
not good, we'll still think about it. And but tonight, everyone's work, I don't want to say comes to an end, because I think there's a
No.
lot of work to continue to do. And I think the only clarifying point of this is, does this continue in the small subgroups? Does this continue with, I don't know the criminal justice groups like CJAC you were talking about that are run. I'm not part of those. But where do the folks on this call in this group go to continue to participate? I think is something before we end tonight, we either have some kind of understanding or the ability to follow up with the group. So I know there's smaller stakeholder groups still looking to get together, and that's great, but
But what you just said, Rachel, the CJAC group has been together and been meeting and grown its membership and its diversity as far as both people in the program, people in the community, as well as the various professions and other nonprofits that are represented. And you know, law enforcement, it started out literally as a jail management population kind of thing, and some of the restorative justice of Dennis Whitman and Doug Call. Now, you know, it would seem appropriate to continue to add and utilize some of the momentum from this group to become part of the CJAC, because the county's doing the same thing as far as putting a police perspective together, just like the city of Batavia has. You know, so again, it's to continue that momentum to a certain extent, and utilize that large forum that has a lot of the people and some of the one-off services that are connected to what we've been talking about here tonight and what's in this draft plan. They all have seats at that table.
well, and all of us have big ownership
And
to
it's a
this
virtual
plan.
table right now, but you know, it's still,
Right.
it's still, you know, that opportunity to have that ongoing dialogue.
You know, I think the follow-up of this plan at some point, it's on myself and the chief to follow up with council on an annual basis to see how this is going and how it's evolved. So there are opportunities to, you know, the plan doesn't get finished and put on a shelf, is what I'm
Right.
trying to say. I think both the chief and I are committed to making sure that we are reviewing this and trying to bake this into our strategic priorities that come forward to council every single year at budget time as well.
Well, I think that's the reason, you know, what the county will most likely be doing as far as its county comprehensive plan, what you guys are doing with regard to your update and the implement, you know, what's there as far as the city's plan, you know, and how you also put together your annual expenditure plans. Because again, those are proposals, but they also give people the opportunity to see whether or not there are gaps and or what the constraints are, rather than a deaf ear was turned to something like this. And the patented excuse of there isn't any money, you know, doesn't necessarily resonate in the community.
Mhm. Rachel, thank you for bringing that up about, you know, how is this group going to continue? I had a question that I asked through email today with Eric regarding the focus group that met. And I guess I'm just asking, is the focus group going to continue to meet? And is there an opportunity for either other people to join that focus group, or that we could, you know, establish another focus group? I don't know, but I'm with you, Rachel. I think that this group has a lot of investment in this right now, and we need to keep the momentum moving past this submission to the governor's office. So I guess I really want to be involved going forward in any kind of discussions that are happening. And I didn't know if the focus group was something that anybody could come into, or if it was a select group out of this group that was charged with doing that, and is that going to continue?
I think there's options for both. So I think we all have each other's emails, right? We're all linked now through email. But I think some of the focus groups will be closed conversations with folks from our community and the police. But I'm not, I don't think that they all need to be closed. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Victor, can you help me out here?
No, we did talk about certain groups meeting after this. We also talked about having certain summits where we actually invite everybody, the whole community in, and try to get us all in one room and be able to hear opinions and voice opinions and try to draw conclusions out of just meeting like that. But there is works. I know Just Kings is definitely looking to put on a summit to where we can just have conversations and this doesn't end here. So I hope that kind of answers.
No, that's a good term. That's a good term, Victor, a summit, you know.
And Millie, all of the things you're thinking about for online conversations with our community, we'd hope you'd invite us in this group. We'll give all the contacts there so we can all participate in what you put on. And I'd ask the group members to look at each other as friends and partners. And if a group member calls you, please try to be there to support them and help them.
Yeah, I mean, that was the conversation that, originally Julie and I had, was that we wanted to begin scheduling, some type of implicit bias training, to begin with, just to start the conversation. But, and definitely for this group, but maybe another training for the larger community. But I think this group really has invested a lot of time, and I think we're a good group and it's diverse, and I don't want the conversation to end, and I'm concerned that it's going to. I really want to be a part of ongoing conversations, whether we organize it or we just become a subset of the group that's already there, and work with that group. I really want to be a part of it. And I think everybody here in this group wants to continue.
Yeah. I don't think the conversation ends here. Like I said earlier, with the chief and assistant chief, these are both people that want to have this conversation. With or without this group, they went above and beyond, like I said, to form other groups and actually hear the community's voice. So I don't think this is something that's just going to stop here because Cuomo said we had to do this. We actually have a police chief and an assistant chief that care about their community. So that's huge.
Yeah, there's no plans for this to stop. We had a conversation internally a little while ago. As I mentioned, I think at one of our presentations, we have what's called a community policing committee within the department. One of the things that we talked about is actually inviting the community to that community policing meeting, because it's usually an internal facing meeting to try to come up with ways to integrate ourselves into the community and attend these different events and stuff like that. And we realized Detective Wojtaszek had mentioned, like, we don't have any citizens on this committee. Why don't we have a citizen or two on this committee to help us in getting into the areas that we need to get into and focusing on those areas. So that would be something that I would see, at least for one of our internal committees, to try to keep this conversation going, is inviting more people to those type of functions. I really look forward to a Citizens Police Academy. I certainly hope we can make that happen, because I think that is a perfect opportunity. And just looking at other communities that have done it, a perfect opportunity for us to really, serve the public a lot better, and you know, have that educational piece that I think we need so very badly with our community. You know, back and forth conversation as well. And the focus group, as Victor had mentioned, we're going to keep going with that. I think that's extremely important. So yeah, I just want to take a moment and thank everybody that came to the table. I know there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of different opinions, a lot of different voices. I want to thank everyone for their time and effort that they put into this. Nobody slacked off here. Everybody participated, even even the the individuals that weren't necessarily outlined in the executive order. I think it was absolutely wonderful hearing from those different departments and those different perspectives. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for your time and helping us make this the best plan that we could make. We kind of went over on the CJAC call for those of you that were with it. The kind of went around the room on the different plans that were being done, and we got a lot of real positive feedback on the one that the city put together and the city is doing. So that's because of you guys, and we appreciate it.
Thank you for
Excellent.
your services also.
Excellent.
Yeah, Sean, thank you so much for how much effort you put into this, and it's amazing, and I'm always honored to be a part of such a great community of here in Genesee County, and it's been an honor to be on this committee and to talk about the really big issues that are in front of us right now as a nation. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I just want to make sure I'm clear. The focus group then that already met will continue to meet, but that group is closed to the original participants.
I don't know that it's closed. I think right now we're just getting off the ground.
Okay.
I think there's some groundwork that needs to be laid. I think there's some other conversations that have to be had. And, I wish Superintendent Solar was here tonight to kind of discuss, because I did kind of give him the reins on that one.
Okay.
Just let him run with it. He has some other ideas as well, but I think it's just a starting point, quite honestly. I think wrapping some other individuals into that group and into that conversation will happen at some point in time.
Okay. I just want to express my, my want to be included if at some point that is available.
Understood.
Gotcha. Been heard and recognized, Millie.
Thanks, Jay.
Anything else, people?
No, I think it's a great organization, and I think we should probably meet on a quarterly basis just to talk and see what's going on.
Let's work on that. Okay. Anything else, George? Any more context for the good of the order as far as the process going forward from you and Rach and the chief?
No, I think you got most of it. Just, we weren't going to do a public meeting like you would do traditionally with a local law or something of that sort. We do obviously want to solicit public comments. And that's why Rachel outlined the process that we put together.
Right.
With COVID and everything else, we're going to do the very best we can for that with the questionnaire and form that's put out with the proposed plan. So I think we're headed down the tracks as Rachel indicated, and definitely appreciate everybody's help.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be well and be safe. And remember, look at the focus group minutes. Look at the heading up there, the proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We are together, and we want to keep going in that direction and in that manner. Anything else?
Thank you, Jay. Jay, sorry, Greg, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Just saying thank you.
Jay and Eric for being moderators. All the money we gave you to do so, which was absolutely nothing.
You mean that $1.298 check that I just got that bounced?
You didn't get my bill?
Must have went to the wrong address.
I sent it to Matt Landers, don't worry. But really,
right,
we
ladies and
appreciate
gentlemen,
it.
Thank you very much. Take care. We will be
Thank
seeing
you,
and meeting
everybody.
again.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
everybody.
Stay safe.
Yep.
God bless.
Bye.
Go Bills.
Oh, no.